So we have the product rule, the quotient rule, and the chain rule, which are all ways that we can combine two differentiable functions f and g. So now we're just going to practice using these three theorems with a couple of combinations of functions. So let's start with f equals x, g equals e to the x. So let's look at f times g. F times g is x e to the x, x times e to the x. Let's see what the derivative is. According to the theorem, I take the derivative of the first function, which is just 1, times g itself, plus the first function times the derivative of the second function. And the derivative of e to the x is just e to the x. So I can simplify this by saying that the derivative of x e to the x is e to the x times 1 plus x. All right, let's see what the quotient rule will give us. Again, f is x and g is e to the x. So we have x over e to the x, and we want to take the derivative, and that equals the derivative of the top function times g minus f, which equals x, times the derivative of g, which is just e to the x, and I square the bottom function. That equals e to the x, 1 minus x, times e to the x squared. So I can cancel e to the x in the numerator, times 1 of the e to the x's in the denominator to give me 1 minus x over e to the x. Now finally, let's use the chain rule, f of g to the x prime. So what is f composed with g? F is just x, and g is e to the x. So when f equals x and g equals e to the x, f composed with g simply equals e to the x, because we're substituting e to the x in place of x. So that is just e to the x. So then f g of x prime is simply e to the x. Okay, now let's look at something slightly more complicated. Let's have f equals x squared and g equals e to the x again. Let's do the product rule. Chain rule. And composition. Now, when we compose f with g, we will get something interesting. So remember, f squares whatever is inside here. So it's f of e to the x, and f squares this, so that's e to the x squared, or e to the 2x. Okay, so f composed with g prime equals the derivative of the outside function evaluated at the inside function. The derivative of the outside function is 2 times x. And since we're evaluating it at the inside function, that's 2 e to the x times the derivative of the inside function, which is e to the x. So you'll get 2 e to the x squared, or e to the 2x.